Hi, everyone. Welcome back to In the Spotlight with Laurel Starks. I'm your host, the CEO and founder of the Alumni Institute. And today we've got one of my favorite people who has agreed to join us as our guest, Scott Sillari. He is going to be speaking with us about building and leading a sales team. So leading salespeople, there is an art and science to leading salespeople, what makes them tick, what motivates them. When do you push? When do you let them self-discover? All of that good stuff, and how to get the most out of your sales team. The sales team is the lifeblood of any business. Without them, businesses don't succeed. There is no business without a sales team. So it is a very, very important component of building any kind of business. And Scott has got quite an impressive background. He was one of the ones that built and started viral marketing. If you all are familiar with viral marketing, he started and built and led the sales and marketing division for viral marketing, launched them into the stratosphere with real estate, digital marketing, with video. And then most recently, he has teamed up with Realsync, and he built and developed and led the sales and marketing division for Realsync. So Scott is not a stranger to the industry. He's been in the real estate industry for over 13 years. He's got his real estate license. He's got a mortgage background. He even he is a certified appraiser, which is very interesting to me. And so he is going to be here. He's agreed to join us to give us his tips and tricks and nuggets in doing that. I will also fully disclose that Scott has been a consultant of the Alumni Institute in our building of our sales and marketing department. So he's been our go-to guy for as long as we've been around. So since 2018, Scott has been helping us develop ours. So we're very thankful to Scott and his wisdom. So welcome, Scott. Good to see you again.
Laurel, that was a really, really nice and welcoming introduction. I really appreciate it. It was very, very nice. Thank you. Yes, I'm so excited to be here with you. I love speaking with you. We always have a good time. So I'm excited to discuss those things that you mentioned as far as developing a sales team. And hopefully this helps and adds some value for your patrons.
Well, I know it will. I also want to add to that a sales team. There's another dynamic to it that I want to also kind of unpack, and that is in the virtual world. So it's not just about leading a sales team, which we're going to for sure talk about, but then also let's take it one step further and say, how do you virtually do it? Because a lot of businesses have gone virtual and are planning to remain virtual. So,
yeah, definitely.
Okay. So let's get started with, how did you learn how to do sales, and what are some of the big rocks that you discovered when you got into sales, and then how did you transition that to leadership in sales?
Yeah. I mean, well, when you're starting out, I think any good salesperson knows that they, even if you're in a leadership position now, that you had to do the sales at some point, right? Like, so, and you had to go through the learning of prospecting, making phone calls, learning scripts, and then making those scripts your own, right? Like having the knowledge to be dynamic on the phone or in person when you're selling whatever product or service that you're selling, whether it's real estate or anything else, right? So, learning that, I think, is one of the vital things that you have to do at the beginning in order to become a great leader in sales, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then, in that process, you learn how to communicate with people and understand what their pains are, and how whatever you're offering, your service, can fulfill that need or fill that void, or rid that pain for that particular person, right? So when you go through that as a salesperson, you learn, and if you're good, you develop, you become really good at it, and then it puts you in a position to then teach the knowledge of what you've learned. And that becomes one of the greatest ways to become a leader, is by teaching others what you've done. Right. So,
and I want to also draw a distinction, because just because somebody is good at something doesn't mean that they're necessarily good at teaching it or at leading it. Right.
Yeah.
So let's assume that everyone who's listening has got some sort of a decent track record with selling, and they know how to do it. You know, there's a bit of a killer instinct that is a little bit of an intangible that everyone has, and now they're ready to kick it to the next level and say, you know what, I've been the sole producer, I've got an admin or two or whatever, and now I need to hire someone, and I need to, you know, I really want to build that sales team. Or maybe they have built a sales team and they keep failing at it.
Yeah.
I can attest to that. I've got lots of experience in failing to lead a sales team effectively. So let's start with, I would think probably you need to first and foremost hire the right person.
Yeah. So yeah, you're looking for a fairly high D, high I personality on a DISC assessment, right? Someone that is very comfortable at communicating, has a track record or experience of being successful in sales, right? Like the problem, I think, in a lot of times with real estate, when you're hiring new real estate agents, is like they have no track record or experience. So there's a lot of failure when you hire new people. And part of that is that you're not hiring someone with experience. Right. Or when you go to hire someone with experience, they have all this baggage from a past broker or whatever. I recommend hire someone from a different industry that has sales experience. I mean, that'd be smart. Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Because I was going to say, should you put sales experience over real estate experience?
It's it's right there. Right. Okay. So I mean, if you can find someone that is in real estate, has sales experience as well within real estate, I think that's a great person to find. But that's not like, if you're really scaling up, that's not always available. And so the second place you turn to is find someone that you can offer a great commission, a great commission profession with really good trainings, but then you got to train them. Right. So that kind of goes back to like, okay, once you identify the right person, how do you train them? Right. To be really good at sales. And it's, I do it, we do it, and then you do it. Okay. So that's the process.
Love it.
You watch me do what you're going to be doing. And that starts with probably like an ISA type position where you're prospecting first, right? So that you, as the team lead or the business owner, you have to be on the phone and show them how they can be successful. You can't just say, here's a script, go make phone calls. If they don't see someone being successful, whether it's another team member or you being the one doing what they have to do and then watching you, it's so important for them to listen, especially if we're talking virtual. What's great is there's software out there where someone virtually can listen to all your calls. You just have to have the right tools, right? And Zoom actually works like that. You can do the audio share when you share the screen. They can be making the calls. I think I was doing that with Andrew at one point.
Yeah.
So you can listen to them making calls, right? Or they listen to you as you're making calls first. You show them how to be successful. You show them a successful call using the script that you have to, schedule an appointment, right? And then eventually the next step is you show them how to, close a deal, whether that's out closing a listing appointment or it's over the phone, whatever it is, you're showing them that success. And then you have them do it while you're listening so that you can record it, give them the feedback that they need. There's so much that happens circumstantially on a phone call or an in-person sales meeting. There's so much to teach. And that's why it's so important that you do these steps, because then when you're listening to them, you can give them feedback. And I would recommend this. This is like they, watch you do it for a week or two. Then you're watching them for like a week or two. I mean, probably a month process of training roughly. Right. And then they're good to go and do it on their own, but you still want to be giving them feedback when they're doing it on their own. If you could be recording and listening to calls. I remember when I was building out my viral sales team, there was too many calls or too many people, right? But like we had a daily huddle and I'd pick one sales call. We just listen to it for like an hour and go through it. And I would ask them, the whole sales team, questions. What do you think you could have done differently here? How could you have taken this call a different direction? How could you have answered maybe that question differently based on how you answered it? And like, there's so much opportunity for teaching and training in that type of scenario, right? So
what I'm hearing is that sales is a contact sport, and that you really have to get on the field, right, in order to actually perfect it, learn it, perfect it. This isn't something that is going to be highly effective, a program teaching and training and leading people who either you just let them kind of run loose on their own, or having them in too much like study material. This is something where you need to get out on the field with them and throw the ball over and over and over and over again. So, okay, so that's good. Another question that I have for you is, how long do you let someone fail at sales? How long do you, how long? I mean, you've trained umpteen gazillion salespeople by now. You've led them. You probably have a really good eye at this point for recognizing who's going to succeed early on versus who is gonna probably not succeed. So
so there's a couple things I always look for, Laurel, and behavior, motivation, skills, right? There's like a triangle when you're hiring anybody, right? The skills is always the thing that you're probably going to be teaching. They may have some, but you have to teach them the way to do, sales in your organization, right? If you start to see that they don't have the right behaviors, or they seem not motivated when you thought they were, like, fire them as soon as you can.
Because what types of behaviors?
So they're not showing up on time, or there's excuses about certain things that are like, they didn't finish the training that you gave them, the booklet that they needed to read on time. There's, little things, maybe not such outlandish things that you're like, oh my God, I got to get rid of this person, but little things that you start to notice that become patterns, right? Maybe they didn't seem like a pattern at first. All of a sudden you start to see these little behavior patterns of them not completing something, or not doing something on time, or making an excuse where you're like, so those are things I'll be looking for throughout the training, right? Are they doing things that are above and beyond? Are they on time, giving you feedback, seeming super motivated into it? That's the other thing, motivation, right? Like, are they trying to excel and be the best of this maybe group that you hired? Or if it's just one person, like, can you feel that? That's the thing that you can notice. You can see those behaviors and motivations, right? And so if you start to notice little things that aren't adding up, like, I would be very quick to, now what you're talking about, let's assume they have that motivation behavior, and we're getting over to the skills part, which is the training. That's what you have to have the training for them as the salesperson, and follow those steps that I already mentioned, right? At a certain point when they're on their own, if you've taken the time, that's why it's so important to take the time there's a lot of important things here, right? When you're hiring someone, it's very important that you have a really good hiring process and interview process, so that you do hire a person that you believe is going to be successful in this position. But then you take them through that training process. Once you get to where they're on their own, well, you have to make sure that you're continuing to do ongoing training. And eventually they're going to either start to be successful, or they're going to keep failing, like you mentioned. And it's going to be pretty noticeable. Like, they should be successful pretty quickly, honestly, if you do the training right, if you build the foundation correctly at the beginning, right? So that's why it's so important that you spend the time, because if you don't, and they're up and down as a salesperson, and you didn't give them a good training foundation, you don't know if it's because of you or because of them. Right? That's why it's so important that it's almost like you're giving this foundation and getting that out of the way, to where then you can identify much more quickly whether or not it's a skill set problem, where they just don't have the skills, like, in the moment to close the deal, compared to maybe somebody else or whatever. Right. And that would be easier to identify if you did the other things first. Right. So like when I'm thinking about hiring one person, eventually this this process scales. That's why it's so important. You do it when you're first training, like your first salesperson or your second salesperson, that you have this process, this foundation of training them this way to where eventually you're gonna have a sales manager that then can go do it at a group level, right? And you're hiring 5 people at a time instead of 1 person at a time.
That's a really good point. You should build your sales training such that it's scalable. Mm-hmm. So in other words, something we do within our company is we take a thing that we're doing, whatever the initiative is that we're launching, and we say, okay, let's build this as though we have 1,000 people who are going to be going through the program. Yeah. And so it sounds to me like what you're saying is build your system, your training system, such that this is a kind of a package that you can literally hand off to a sales manager and somebody else could eventually implement it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, that's how you have to be thinking when you first start.
You have to always be thinking, right, in terms of scalability. So that's good. So you would give it about a month is a good time frame for training a salesperson. And then from there, I mean, it's
maybe another month. Okay. I mean, if you're giving them enough appointments, right? It's all circumstantial too. Like if they're going on 1 appointment a week or whatever, you don't have enough leads for them. It's going to be hard to do that in a month. Right. But if they're going on a significant amount of appointments every week and you're not seeing results over a month, like something's going on and they should be performing. Right. Or they're just all of a sudden it's a skills thing, right? Because if their behavior motivation's there, then they're just not cut out for sales.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it can be a little bit tough to know. It's like, okay, well, I've been doing this for however many years. And I know that when I go out on appointments, I can convert to such and such. And this is my expectation of myself.
Yeah.
And then you have somebody who is maybe a 20-year-old kid, fearless, that's good at engaging. And, maybe they've got a little sales background of some sort, and you give it to them, you give them the opportunity, and they're just not hitting, obviously, your standards.
They're not. Yeah. I mean, they're not going to.
They're not going to, but it's a matter of knowing when to cut bait, because the cost of having a dud salesperson is
very high. It's very
extremely high. It's extremely high.
I mean, I don't know what close ratios are supposed to be for a good sales agent in real estate. I mean, you probably could tell me more, but like, you got to assume that at first they're going to be doing probably half the rate that you're doing. And then eventually they can work up close to what you're doing. But, and ideally you've hired someone, and that's how you identify like a sales manager, if they're doing it better than you did. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, this person could be probably a leader, or they're so motivated. They're doing such a good job, but
that's one of the good first steps is figure out your own close ratio. I mean, figure out what that even is. I mean, just go back a year and see how many at bats you got and how many you closed to a listing, right? Yeah. Closed to a contract, not necessarily closed the sale meaning closing, escrow is a different.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a disheveled mess and your numbers are all over the place, you don't know what you're even doing, and you're just flying by the seat of your pants, like good luck hiring someone that's going to be successful. I mean, you got to get your shit in order. No offense. I mean, get your stuff in order, get your systems in order, get your organization in order, get your onboarding, get your automation. I mean, I have a client that we worked with for months building out all of his automation to where he can literally plug someone in and instantly the workflows, everything is done. They're up to speed. And they're out producing within 30 days, right?
Nice.
Most real estate teams are not like that.
Right. And
especially to scale.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And you've got to give them, like, I tell my people, I'm going to give you 110%. In order for this to really work, you need to give me 110% back.
Yeah.
So, but what that means is that my 110%, I got to deliver on that 110%. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I can't fail them, because there's a difference between you failing them and them failing you.
Right.
So understanding what that is. So like you said,
Yeah.
Get your own stuff in order and get that onboarding system built and figured out. And then it's they watch you, you watch them, and then off they go.
Off they go. And here's the deal. It's painful at first when you're building out the systems and the foundation of this training. I get it. But you gotta think long term again.
Right.
In the long term, it's going to save you so much pain when you have these systems all dialed in, and you can go to your sales manager, hey, hire 10 people at once, right? Let's see how they do in the first day. Let's put I used to hire 10 people, put them in a room, and got 70% of them would leave by lunch because I would put them on the phones and make them call and make them, and I'd weed out people, but then I'd have 3 rock stars that came through right. that I'd be able to hire. Right. So you can adjust the way you're hiring too, once you have this foundational system in place to where you can do it more quickly and at scale.
Right. So, and that is, I mean, the boiler room effect can be very highly effective. So, all right. So then let's switch to in the virtual world. So you were talking about how there are a lot of ways that you can do this. And you mentioned Andrew. For those of you who don't know, Andrew's my son who is in college, and he's in school right now, studying real estate finance. And so he came on to start out as an ISA, and who better to put him with than Scott Sillari. So Scott helped coach and guided him into that. And it was game changing when he actually got to listen to you. You guys did a Zoom together, and he got to listen to you on the call with a prospect, and you converted it like to an appointment. I think the first one, he's like, oh my God, that was amazing to see how it's actually done. So in a virtual world, what does the day-to-day look like for a sales team? I mean, are you guys having a morning huddle and script practice every single morning at 8:00? Are you guys having check-ins every, however? What does that look like? How do you keep that glue together in a virtual world?
Yeah. So every morning you have a daily huddle with your team, right? You go over the successes you had from the day before. So what were your numbers? They're reporting their numbers, of course, how many dials, connects, appointments set, things like that, right? As you scale, you're going to need to have visibility in like their messaging too, right? And understand like their email messaging too, because you're not just calling, you're emailing too, right? And so you have to have some systems in place. So you have to have some sort of CRM, a dialer. We use Dialpad that integrates directly into HubSpot. So I have that. We use Zoom as well. And so when you're training, again, going back to like, you have to be prepared with them and have a list so you can make calls and they can listen, right? But as far as like the ongoing, we're communicating throughout the day via Slack. So we have that system as well. So we're communicating with each other and giving feedback. Maybe something that happened on the call. We have certain channels for sales, right? And then from there, we huddle up at the end of the day as well, go over like anything that not as specific as the analytics, but more like circumstantial questions that came up that we can add to like FAQs if we didn't have an answer for, or add to our script list, right? We kind of discuss those stories in that huddle as well. And then also weekly, I do like games and try to have things that are fun, especially if it's, if you have a sizable virtual team, you got to keep it light and have fun a little bit too. So we do, something on Friday afternoons. We do some different games that really have nothing to do with the sales, just more culture building and having fun and keeping it light. Because if you're pounding phones all day and doing sales calls all day, it's exhausting and it's monotonous, like you said, right? So you have to do some things that.
What are some examples of those like little fun games?
So like we'll do like trivia type things, or like we'll even be on video and do like heads up, playing it with each other, and just a bunch, different things like that, right?
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So you talked about when you get into the virtual world, it's just the way real estate has moved completely to begin with. I've been in the business for 17 years. And so it's changed significantly with regards to our reliance on technology.
Right.
When you up that and you talk about having a virtual world, really technology is your only platform. And so there have been over the years many, many things that have come and gone with regards to making technology, making things easier, making things more efficient and streamlined. And I do want to talk, I would like to hear you speak a little bit to Realsync, which is the current company that you've built all of this sales and marketing for.
Yeah.
And how does an average agent benefit from Realsync? Because and just to clarify for those of you who maybe aren't this advanced technologically yet, he's talking about its automation, where you may do one thing here, but it triggers something to happen automatically over there. It eliminates the need for multiple data entry things here and there and all over all these systems.
Yeah.
So having said that, how can Realsync help an agent become more streamlined and frankly scale like what we had been talking about?
Yeah. So, I mean, my company, Realsync, what we do is we do integration and automation with real estate systems, right? So reduce the pain of manual entry in multiple systems, whether it's your CRM or, KPI system like Sisu, or, transaction management system like Dialloop or SkySlope, so that you're not having assistants or agents in multiple systems. They just work out of their CRM, right? Now, what we've been talking about today, Laurel, is like sales, right? And scaling sales. So bringing in new sales agents. So, that's a painful process for a lot of people system wise, right? Getting them, into your organization, right? Into all your different systems, Gmail, your CRM, getting them into the lead systems. I mean, you name it, right? So how do you automate all that? So I mentioned earlier, we worked with the team at the end of last year for 3-4 months building out their entire HubSpot. And now when he adds a sales agent, as soon as he creates that sales agent in HubSpot, it automatically creates training workflows for that particular sales agent. And it automatically triggers everything else that they need to be within that organization. All that setup, right? It's all automated, right? All the workflows. So imagine now your sales agent's getting emails on day 1, day 2 with what they have to do with training videos that have already been taken care of and done. Your onboarding process is just so much easier and efficient and automated, right? So this is how you use technology to make your life easier and to make your business scalable and smooth, right? Is things like this.
And I can't help but think, because as a business owner, I can't help but think about how much hiring someone takes so much time and energy and effort.
Yeah.
From the time of placing an ad, what do you even write in the ad, interviewing, references, I mean, you name it, all of that. By the time they've come on board and it's day 1, and, it's like, this person had better work out. And then you onboard them, they need to get plugged into your systems. That's the one piece we didn't exactly talk about because it's kind of boring, frankly, but they need to plug into your systems. They need to know how does everything work? I mean, what's their email signature, blah, 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 all that. Then they watch you watch them, they're off on their own. It's such a journey from day 1 until then you realize this person isn't cutting it. And you start to see those signs that, God, you just wish you could pretend weren't there, right? They're a little bit late.
Yeah.
Their dog ate their homework, whatever. But when you have something like an automated onboarding system, that takes kind of half of that. I mean, it still doesn't, you still have to interview, you still have to hire, you still
you
have to do all
you
that.
still have to do the interviewing, whether it's you or a sales manager or whoever. But like with the click of a button, if all the other operational training meetings they get put into automatically, all that stuff is already preset and dialed in, it makes it a lot less painful.
A lot less painful. And you can then flip the switch and go, you're not cutting it. And then you bring in the next person and then off you go. And so I think just even from that is such a, probably a well-removed like benefit that you don't really think about, but when you know that you've got something, you've got a system that is just so well oiled like that, it makes cutting the cord and letting somebody loose that much easier, which ultimately what we talked about, when you have a salesperson who is not effective, it grossly impacts the company's bottom line. Matter of fact, it can sink a company if you don't get control of it quick.
Yeah. And here's the thing. If you spend the time and you've set up the interviewing process and you have someone doing it for you, right? A sales manager, whoever, and the automation with the sales and the training and everything, I mean, minus being on the phone, listening to them, right? But everything else, like the behaviors and the motivation things that I was talking about in that first month, they will rear their head if you have all this stuff dialed in, and you'll know you can just fire that person immediately.
Right.
And so that's the thing. And it allows you then to bring a lot of, multiple people in at once. And I guarantee if they go through all these things that you've put up and you have all this built out, right? And again, there's places you can go find good content for sales training, right? If you don't have the time to put it all together for you. But the reality is, if they go through all that and they get to where they're producing, like they're going to be successful.
Right. It's like that. You bring, I'm going to bring 110% to this. You got to bring 110% for it to be effective. When you've kind of automated that 110% as much as you can, then that's your side that you're bringing to the table. So if they fail, you know what? It's on them. I've done everything I can.
Right.
That's awesome. Okay. So how does somebody get a hold of, realsync.com, and then poof, it tells you what to do and how to get in touch with you if they want to learn more? Yeah.
Or go to, I'll share a link, but, freetechconsult.com, freetechconsult.com. You can put in your info and, I'll do a consult with you and we can figure out how we can service you or help you set up integration depending on the systems you have. And the reality is we fit Laurel as this like middleware, this middle service that really helps you connect the dots in a sense of all the things that you're doing. Right. And we'll guide you on that. Cool. Yeah. Great. Well, I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. So just to recap, it is hire the right person. They shadow you, you shadow them. They're often on their own. Give it at least one good solid month of training, onboarding, have your side of the bargain completely dialed in, and look for all of those little nuanced things like, are they showing up on time? Are they hungry? Are they motivated? And hopefully this helps somebody out there build and lead a sales team. So absolutely love it. All right, my friend. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me. All right. We'll see you next time. Sounds good, Laurel. Bye.